On this week's Gridiron Report, we have both the Pistons and the Red Wings draft results, some Pistons roster controversy, and the start of the NBA free agency. So let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim, from the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire, Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud, champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the story.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mic Drop Studios. Today is Wednesday, July 2nd, and holy shit, do we have a lot to talk about across the Pistons, the Red Wings, everything in between. Let's start right there with the Pistons. We have both the draft to talk about, we have free agency to talk about, but let's go in chronological order here. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I know I have so much to talk about specifically with the free agency and how that played out, but let's go chronological here. Let's start with the NBA draft that happened, now it seems like forever ago. It happened last week. NBA draft, the Pistons selecting 37th overall, Chaz Lanier.
Yeah, let's break it down, man. And I'm pumped to be doing it on vacation right now, but super happy to still be here, hashing it up with you, Tyler, in the beautiful Upper Peninsula of Michigan right now. So yeah, hopefully we're not even having any audio difficulties or anything. I think Tyler and I have it all figured out because we are professionals after all. But yeah, Pistons. Chaz Lanier, 37th overall, and just want to give a quick victory lap, not for myself, but for you, Tyler, because you nailed it, man. This was one of the guys that we broke down in detail on last week's or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. And yeah, I think it's a good pick. It certainly fills a position of need. We talked about it, but Lanier, a career 40%. From three, he's an absolute sharpshooter. He's a flamethrower. He's going to be able to spread out the floor. We did talk about that. He might be a bit of a defensive liability. I think that's something that you're not as it's not as much as a red flag coming out of college. I think maybe it's something you could learn. You can get better. You see guys all the time who are 3-and-D guys, and they do improve in defense. It's really about that shooting that the Pistons need the most. So yeah, I think it's a good pick. There were potentially a couple centers that were on the board that could have gone with the stretch big there, but I do think that filling that position of need, especially at 37, they went best available in my opinion. Like, they got a guy who can just he can be a plug and play guy off the bench, even in his rookie year at that 37th position in the draft, and yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, we talked about last week, and thank you for giving me the kudos. I'm gonna take it and run with it. Although a lot of people were saying Chaz to Detroit. It's not like I picked a random name out of the hat, but we talked about it last week, and that this draft could fall a bunch of different ways. There's a bunch of different guys we could go to. You and I specifically talked about guys like Maxime Renaud. You had Rasheer Fleming, who ended up falling to the second round. A lot of guys that if they were there, we were kind of licking our chops hoping to get. And honestly, the way the draft board fell, a lot of those guys did fall to us. Like Maxime Renaud, he was there when when the Pistons were selecting. He was if you recall, he was the 7'1" Stanford, like you said, center that was available. He could step out, shoot the threes, kind of exactly what we needed in that backup role. And he was there, but it was one of those things that, like, I agree with you. I think they just kind of went best player available, and that's Chaz Lanier. We also talked about like how where the Pistons are at the moment, roster wise, and like in age wise, we don't want to necessarily. We're not gonna be getting a game changer. We're not picking 5th overall like we have for the last 5 years or so. So in the second round, you're not trying to get some guy that can step in and take on those minutes immediately. Chaz Lanier kind of does exactly what you need him to do with this roster, with the age where we're at talent wise, right? The second round, you're not getting a guy that's going to change the game. You're going to, in Chaz Lanier, you're going to get a guy that comes in and just absolutely lights it up. So just a reminder or a refresher of Chaz Lanier and his collegiate career. So he started at North Florida back in 2020. He had 4 seasons at North Florida, then transferred his 5th year, took a COVID year, transferred to Tennessee, started all 38 games for them. He averaged 18 points, shot 39% from 3-point range, had about 8.2 attempts per game. So he's an absolute volume shooter, and he was lethal out there. He's a career 40% shooter. So if anything, jumping up to the SEC, his numbers did go down a tiny bit, but that was expected. It's better, better competition there. So we made the comparison last week. that he's essentially Malik Beasley light. Like he's a movement shooter. There's a lot of guys in the draft that can do spot up shots and they can sit in the corner and take their catch and shoot threes. He's a movement shooter, meaning they will, if you go back and watch his tape at Tennessee, they will send him off screens. As soon as he catches that ball, he's coming off that screen, he's getting a shot in the air. And he's gonna be, I mean, he's a movement shooter. He's gonna be literally moving on his way to the basket, and he's able to calibrate in the air and get that shot off. And that's what Malik does so well. Again, I mentioned it in last week's episode. If you ever saw Malik play, and we'll get into Malik later. Trust me, I have plenty of ideas and thoughts based on that. If you ever saw him play, it was insane how he can go flying across the floor, catch the ball, get a shot up immediately, still be floating away from the basket, and nail it like no other. And that's kind of what Chaz does. So I really like what they were able to do with Chaz. What I've liked someone like Maxime Reneau, who is a 7'1" floor spacing big. Obviously, yes, there must have been maybe some concerns with it because he didn't just go right after us. He fell a few spots after us even further. So maybe there were some injury concerns. I think Chaz is older himself. Maybe Maxime was a little bit older as well, and they didn't want to go that route. I don't know what it was, but like in the second round, you could do a lot worse than Chaz Lanier.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And you talked about Malik a couple times, man. Yeah, it's a tough situation. Before we get into Malik Beasley, I think we're all kind of, pissed off. Again, it's a lot of alleged stuff. We'll get into it. But before we get into that, I think we have signed a couple, free agents. Anyone worth note, anyone that stands out that could potentially make this roster, or is this mostly G League guys at that point?
No, I think they are going to start as G League guys. So obviously, you go through there's only 2 rounds in the NBA draft, so a lot of these guys are going to go undrafted. So it's kind of as soon as that draft ends, you're suddenly starting to look through this basket of bargain guys who didn't get drafted. So the Detroit Pistons signed Dawson Garcia, Bryce Williams, Zakai Ziegler, and AJ Matson. So of those 4, there's absolutely a number of those guys that I really are really intriguing to me. So first and foremost, Zakai Ziegler. He was the other former guard on that Tennessee team. The issue with him, so he's a guy that is destined to be in coaching. Like you saw him, I think he was a 5th year. He was lobbying for his 6th year. The NCAA didn't give it to him, but he's a guy that is so smart and cerebral on the court. He's playing, he's basically a coach on the court. He's only 5'9", which is the reason why he didn't go drafted. But he's Chaz Lanier's, is the fellow front court for Chaz Lanier with the Tennessee Volunteers. So interesting that the Detroit brought him in. He was a 2-time SEC Defensive Player of the Year at just 5'9". So it's going to be so hard for him to break into an NBA roster at just 5'9", but it's something to note. So that's something definitely worth, keeping an eye on. The other 2 guys that are really surprising and really intriguing to me is Dawson Garcia. So Dawson Garcia, a guy that I think Izzo actually maybe recruited out of high school, ended up committing to Marquette, transferred to UNC after 1 year at Marquette, then transferred after 1 year at UNC to Minnesota. He played 3 years at Minnesota. So Dawson Garcia, a 6'11" forward from the Minnesota Gophers. Last year with Minnesota, he averaged 19 points, and he shot 37% from 3. So that's a 6'11" player who's shooting 37%. He's a little bit undersized mass-wise to play a true center, so he's really like a 6'11" forward or like a 4 guard. But somebody that he has the size, he has the 3-point ability. So I'm really going to be watching him during the summer league. And then the other guy is going to be Bryce Williams. So Bryce Williams out of Nebraska, just another good sized wing. Shot the 3 ball, I think at like 40% possibly, something around there. So he has 6'8" wing. So again, 2 guys that like have good size and 3-point ability that they might end up just being G League guys, but if nothing else, like we threw, we threw our grenade out there and maybe it hit, maybe it didn't. We'll try and see. Like I like these guys that we end up signing. And again, they might be nothing, they might be something. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think for those guys, and especially, you talk about the 5'9" gritty guard from Tennessee. I mean, you just know that kid has heart. I mean, I've never, honestly, hand up, never heard of that guy in my life. Didn't watch a ton of SEC basketball, but, you love seeing the gritty short king who, 2-time SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So, yeah, I mean, it's you'd love to see heart on a team like that. A guy who's, real coachable, wants to be a coach himself, maybe. So we'll see if any of those guys can stick around, make the G League team, potentially make a Pistons Pistons roster at some point in the future. But I know we did bury the lead quite a bit here. We got to talk about it, man. I mean, it's a huge elephant in the room. It's a horrible look. I'll say it's probably a horrible look for the Pistons. It's not really this stuff didn't really happen when Malik Beasley was on the Pistons, but Malik Beasley is currently under federal investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office regarding alleged, keyword is alleged, gambling activity related to NBA games and prop bets, specifically during that 2023-24 season when Malik played for the Milwaukee Bucks. So yeah, it's not good whenever you're under these allegations, and then of course like all the Twitter, the guys on Twitter, the guys on Instagram are going to go and look at the tape and see just these weird anomalies where, the Bucks are, down 9 points, the spread's 8.5, and Malik Beasley is taking a rebound with 4 seconds left and going coast to coast for the bucket. So, I mean, it's not a great look. I'll say that. And again, we will preface this. This is all just alleged, but I think a lot of the moves that the Pistons have made since these allegations broke, and I'm assuming that the Pistons did know about this before that it broke, but they're really seeming to reload on 3-point shooters, and I think it's because they know that he's guilty and he's gone. So it's not great, man.
Yeah. Okay. So I texted you before we started and just saying like you keep me on a timer because I could go so far in the weeds with this, and then leading into the free agency for how the Pistons handled that. I truly could go 4 hours straight of just like talking about that. So I need you to keep me straight, make sure we're not boring our listeners out there. But so, okay, yeah. Malik Beasley, not from this past year, from, like you said, from the year before when he was with the Bucks, the 2023-2024 season, under investigation. So a few things that pop out. One, they obviously started cracking down on this. Specifically, they were talking about Jonte Porter, the player a few years ago who is brothers with Michael Porter Jr. out there. Really a nobody player, but he was very obviously betting on games against him and using guys around him to bet on games. And he would do things. It was fairly obvious he was doing things like over and under, stuff like that. He got banned from the league, from the NBA for a lifetime. They were, I think, bringing criminal charges up against him. I don't know where that ended up falling, if he actually ended up being sentenced to any time in prison or anything. But nonetheless, it's been a big thing with the NBA over the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
We saw Terry Rozier, who actually just got like approved to come back to the league. He was under the same exact thing Malik Beasley's under investigation this time, starting I think last year. The difference with Terry Rozier and Malik Beasley is that Terry was currently under contract while this was going on. So he was being I don't know if he ever got actually suspended by the NBA. But there was some issues. He was still on contract, so they just kind of had to wait it out. And again, maybe he was suspended, maybe he wasn't. I can't recall. But they just kind of had to wait it out. Now he's been cleared. He was innocent. It was just kind of all strange things, whether it actually happened or not. Who's to say? But he was cleared. The issue with Malik is that still same thing could be true with Malik. He could still be innocent. And if he was under contract, we probably would just be like, hey, either we're gonna issue suspension for Malik until all this blows over. Maybe the NBA issues a suspension for Malik until this all blows over. Whatever, Malik, you're probably just gonna sit on the bench until we figure this out. That could be a few weeks. That could be 6 months. Who knows? He might end up being guilty, and it's the rest of his career. We cut his contract there. It's over and done with. The issue with this is that he's not on a contract right now. We were in the process of talking about I think it was a 3-year, $42 million contract re-signing with him. So the issue with him is that we can't just say like, hey, okay, you just sit on the bench and let's wait this out. And after it all happens and comes out, if you're innocent, start playing. If you're guilty, we'll cut you, whatever. He actively needs a contract. So we had to now pivot. And that kind of leads us into the free agency conversation and stuff. But I will say, I've gone back and forth on this. It's terrible. It's a terrible look for Malik. It seems like they're making it. The reports are coming out that he's been having some money issues. That he currently owes like $650,000 or something like that, and it's not a good look. But
How do you owe $600,000 when you just made $6 million last year to play basketball? Like that blows my mind.
I mean, if he's has a somewhat of a gambling issue, I don't know, but he's posting videos on Instagram and Snapchat over this whole off season. He posted a series. Him and his girlfriend were out on a yacht all summer, or all spring, I should say. He's posting videos currently as of like this morning and yesterday. He's in the Detroit facility playing basketball, and has a smile on his face. He's not acting like he's guilty, and it could mean absolutely nothing. but he doesn't seem to be concerned with any of this. And that kind of leads me into the free agency of it. Like, if you're the Detroit Pistons, this might, and again, I've gone back and forth on this so many times, and I think we just happen to be recording when I'm back like up on the positive with this. This might come out to be a good thing for Detroit because Malik loves Detroit. He's talked about this entire season. Like, if anything, I've gotten the vibe that like he wants to finish his career here. His mom grew up with family here in Detroit, so he spent a lot of his childhood here in Detroit. When he came here, he embraced the city. We loved him. He did fantastic. He had the best statistical year of his career. I think that has us going that like maybe, and I don't know if this is frowned upon, if this would work, what this would be like. I think we go to Malik and we say like, look, we don't know what's going to happen with this. You don't know what's going to happen with this. You probably say you're innocent. That may or may not be true. Let's get you on another 1 year deal. We'll do like a same kind of thing. 1 year, $6 million. He was going for a 3 year, $42 million. So he's lost himself a lot of money. But like, let's do another 1 year. You can sit out. We'll get you on the record. We'll get you on the books. You'll sit out until this blows over. And maybe that's 3 weeks. Maybe that's 2 months, whatever. You sit out. And then when it does all finish up, then maybe next year we can renegotiate to that 6 year or that 3 year, $42 million, whatever. So like, it might come around in which like we just get another year of cheap Malik. Am I crazy? Have I played myself into that, or is that actually something that could happen?
I don't know. I mean, if the NBA gives him a lifetime ban like they did to I mean, who's the player that you were just talking about who got
Jonte
the
Porter.
lifetime ban? Yeah, Porter. Then yeah, I don't know. Then I guess we just burn $6 million and if we sign him again. But no, I see what you're saying. Like Malik Beasley has essentially lost any kind of leverage that he had and everything that he worked toward. This is why it really sucks. I mean, like if he did do this, like you're a fucking idiot, Malik Beasley. But everything that you worked towards this past year, nearly leading the league in threes. I mean, you were awesome. You kind of flamed out a little bit in the playoffs, but I mean, it happened. Small sample size. You had such an awesome season, and you earned this big payday, 42 whatever it was $1 million that you were probably going to get from the Pistons. You just pissed it all away, man. And I get it's kind of retroactive. Maybe all this gambling was like last year, the year before, whenever it was.
Yeah.
But like, I'll never understand it, man. Like this man has made $60 million in his career. Granted, I mean, it's not LeBron numbers. It's not even close to like, most even average NBA players are probably making more than that in their career. But still, man, 60 mil. Like, I mean, what kind of scope creep do you have? What kind of entourage are you paying for? Girls you're paying for that like you have money problems at 60 mil. Like, pal, you got bigger issues, man. And like, it sucks. I'm ranting, but like, Malik was one of my favorite players this year. I know he was one of your favorite players. You bought his goddamn shirt for Sana. No free ads, but you paid a pretty penny for that, I can guarantee. And yeah, this guy has really just pissed it all away with gambling. If it happened again, it's alleged, but no, it sucks, man. It's a bad situation because you wanted to bring Malik back and you wanted to have that flamethrower and really build on this season. Really, really awesome season that this Pistons team had. And you want to improve on it. You want to get further in the playoffs than you did this year with the first round exit. And Malik Beasley is a very big piece to it. So for him not to be on this team next year because of this gambling shit, it just fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to rock with. Like I said, he's on Snapchat. He's still in the facilities working on his game, like playing, smiling, laughing, joking. I just don't. And he could be doing an insane mental gymnastics kind of thing and tricking me, but like that doesn't seem like a guilty guy. I feel like if he kind of knew he was under, like he would probably go into hiding and not. Not show his face at least for a little bit, and maybe that's what he wants us to think, and then he actually is guilty, and so he's like, I'm going to do the opposite and go. I don't know, but like I said, I am. If you catch every 30 minutes, and I'll get into the same thing about the free agency class. I'm up, and then I'm back down, and I'm negative, and then I'm back up to positive, and we just happen to be recording on a moment when I'm like back to positive with Malik, so I'm like, I think this might work out, in which we're going to get one more year because again, he wants to be here. No other team is going to take a risk on him until this is all over with. Like nobody's touching him. He's damaged goods until he's all over with. And even then, I don't know if anyone would really. It depends on how it shakes out, I guess. Some teams definitely still would just keep him off his board. We have all the leverage and being like, hey, you're not going to get any deal ever, possibly ever. Let's just do this 1 year. If you're innocent in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, you can come back. You'll help us out next year. If you're guilty, then you'll probably get the ban from the league and we'll go from there. So the last thing I'll say about Malik is like, and this leads into the free agency class. People keep talking about like how Detroit had to pivot because, and Trajan Langdon had to pivot because of this, and this, it sucks, and it does, but like, you cannot convince me that Trajan Langdon didn't, and the front office didn't know about this. This came from last year. The teams, it's not like, because the free agency just started a few days ago. There's no way at the 11th hour, right before free agency started, that Trajan Langdon got word that Malik Beasley was suddenly under FBI investigation. Like, he had to have known about this for minimum of like 2 weeks before free agency. So all these people that are like, oh, well, now suddenly Trajan has to pivot, and that's why the free agency class is what it ended up being, because we were throwing this bomb in the 11th hour. We fans were given this bomb, but Trajan in the front office knew about this 2 weeks ago. I'm saying at least. Am I wrong on that?
You would have to think. I mean, I can't say yes or no, but yes, I mean, you would have to think that this was, talked about behind closed doors, and
Yeah.
Trajan Lane did know about this. At any rate, though, if you're thinking about maybe still being able to bring back Malik Beasley, can you even do it? Certainly not under the cap that we talked about last week, because of the signings to Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. Karis LeVert is signed yesterday, Duncan today, or at least the news broke today, and free agency officially started for the NBA. So let's break down both of these two, I would say, kind of more similar players, at least on paper that I see. Let's start first with Karis LeVert, 2-year, $29 million deal. LeVert coming from Cleveland, he spent the beginning of his career in Brooklyn, and then I think at least 4-ish years at Cleveland. A very good player, a player who has averaged 20 points at one point in his career. Now, of course, he's in age, 30, 31. So he's, a little bit more in the twilights of his career. We will say, he's not a LeBron who's, getting better at age 40. But still, I mean, last year he did average 12 points a game, and he could still spread out the floor too. 35% from three, give or take, career almost 35%. So yeah, I mean, I think, is he washed? Probably. It seems like the Pistons are, just keen on signing washed former University of Michigan players. But yeah, I mean, I think he's still got a little bit left in the tank. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you thought I've ranted about Malik Beasley, strap in, because I got a lot to talk about this on as well. So we went into this free agency class knowing that not only was going to be one of the craziest off seasons in NBA history. I personally think I guess maybe it kind of lived up to that. It still wasn't that crazy, but there's a lot of options, at least for Detroit. Like we talked about Nickeil Alexander-Walker possibly being an option there. Jake LaRavia. You talked about even like lower tier guys like Bobby Portis, and a few of those guys that like maybe we had so many different options and ways that we could go. It was just kind of like, where did Trajan want to go? Trajan, I'm not going to put it all on him. I think the rumors came down to it for specifically like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. It came down to Detroit and the Atlanta Hawks. He ended up going with the Atlanta Hawks. I truly think that's it's like an Alex Bregman thing, and that like we put their offer out there and he just wanted to play for a different team. So I'm not putting that on Trajan Langdon. But then you look at the other guys that we did whiff on. Jake LaRavia, Bobby Portis ended up staying in Milwaukee. You had a number of other guys that like were kind of like third and fourth on our team. Santia, Adamas, guys that like I wasn't necessarily in love with, but like I wanted to see that upgrade. And I know you were you and I were both kind of going back and forth, like, do we run it back? Do we add to this roster? We kind of ended up doing neither, because we lost Malik Beasley, we lost Tim Hardaway Jr., we lost Dennis Schroeder, and we didn't add via free agency with Jake LaRavia or Santi Aldama, those guys. So we ended up coming away, like you said, with Karis LeVert. Karis was someone that as soon as like Nickeil Alexander-Walker decided to go to the Atlanta Hawks, we kind of pivoted to Karis. So you went through his numbers. Karis, 30 years old, last season, split time, started the season with Cleveland, and then was traded at the deadline to the Atlanta Hawks. So kind of two different teams, two different roles that he was playing with the last year. So when he was with Cleveland, he started just 3 games, played 38 games, mostly at the small forward position. When he got traded to Atlanta, then the trade deadline kind of switched to his more natural shooting guard position. His numbers did jump up scoring wise when he went to Atlanta. He averaged 15 points per game when he played for Atlanta the second half of the season, averaged just 10 the first half when he was with Cleveland. Again, different roles, different players he was playing with. The thing about Karis is that the best ability is availability, and that's kind of Benchin's kind of mantra since coming to Detroit. He's only going after guys that are constantly available and not really injury prone. Tobias Harris is one in particular. Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., both guys that like normally throughout their career are always available. Karis is kind of the opposite of that. You can go through his numbers And as he gets older and
Hmm.
older, he's been very injury prone throughout his career. So that's something that gets a little bit of concern. The other thing is that like he's not necessarily a plug and place replace for any of the guys we had. If you're gonna kind of put him in that like can he plug and replace a guy, is probably Dennis Schroeder, just because he's not necessarily a flamethrower 3-pointer, but he's pretty good off the ball in creating for himself and creating for others. So I can, and we'll go through kind of my starting and secondary unit there at the end after we talk about a few of the other guys. But I think he's kind of more of that replacement for Dennis Schroeder. Again, is it lighting the world on fire? No. When it came out and that we actually signed him and we lost out on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I was furious. Again, I think we were just catching us recording at a good time where I'm kind of back on the positive, but I can't be that mad about it just because I think that maybe we just missed out on Nickeil Alexander-Walker or a guy like that because they just didn't want to come here.
Yeah, I think Levert's washed. I mean, I'm not high on this at all. Let's talk about, Duncan Robinson, where I am a little bit higher than. But no, this I don't know. I mean, this I just really don't get out of bed for a guy like Karis LeVert. I mean, he seems like he's just more in the twilight of his career. Past 4 seasons, he's averaged 12 points a game, 14 points a game, 12 points a game again. So like, I mean, yeah, I get it. He's a role player. He's going to come off as probably your bench two guard, but 30 going on 31. Maybe he's already 31 at the time of recording. Yeah, just I don't know. I'm extremely underwhelmed with this one, but yeah, I don't. Should we dive into Duncan Robinson? That news is hot off the press as of like what 2 hours ago.
Yeah, so the other one, there's a lot of rumors going around with yesterday specifically with Karis LeVert. When that was announced, it also was announced that Dennis Schroeder was leaving, going to the Kings, and there was a lot of rumors about maybe Malik Monk was being involved in a sign and trade. That all fell through. The Kings were able to move some other guys around, clear up some money, give Dennis more money, and not have to do a sign and trade for him. So that kind of fell through. So the other kind of only other really news, we did kind of bury the lead here, and that even before these guys signed, the Pistons also re-signed B-Ball Paul Reed staying with Detroit. And as soon as that news broke the waiver wire, first and foremost for Detroit, I knew we were in trouble because like that shouldn't be the first one that came across, but it did. So B-Ball Paul staying in Detroit. But yeah, like you said, about two hours ago, it was announced that the Detroit Pistons and the Miami Heat have pulled off a sign and trade. So we will be sending Simone Fontecchio out to Miami. In return, we are getting Duncan Robinson. I think you put maybe in the show notes what was his contract that we ended up signing
Three-year,
to?
48 mil.
3 year, 48 mil.
3-year, 48 mil, and relatively team friendly too. Only the first year is fully guaranteed. That second year is partially guaranteed, and then there's no guaranteed money in year 3 of that contract.
Yeah, so I think it was a little bit of an overpay just because I don't think Miami's been trying to trade Duncan Robinson for a few years now. His contract has been
Pretty
up,
much since they signed into that contract.
yeah, exactly. So like I think it was a little bit of an overpay, but a few things about that. So Duncan Robinson last year averaged 11 points, but the real kicker for him, he's a 6'8", one trick pony, 6'7", one trick pony, and he shoots threes. I believe he's the franchise leading 3-point shooter for Miami, and that's a franchise that had Ray Allen there for a few years. So he shot 39% last year. He's a 39, almost damn near 40% 3-point shooter on his career, and that's including a rookie season in which he shot 28%. So he clearly is just a 3-point specialist at 6'7". So when we got the Karis LeVert stuff, I was actively frustrated. That was not great. I was not happy with that. I was hoping more would drop. Duncan Robinson lessens the blow a little bit. Now, it's not what we thought we were going to get. Again, we were talking about all these guys that like had potential. I mean, for God's sake, we were talking about Miles Turner for a minute, but whether he would leave Indiana and Detroit would be a perfect fit. We were talking about Naz Reid and these guys that like would transform this team and truly take us to the next level. And then we had to sit back, and as we re-signed Paul Reed and Karis LeVert, we saw Orlando get better. We saw the Atlanta Hawks get insanely better. We saw a bunch of these other teams get really, really better. And then Detroit was coming around with Karis LeVert. So again, Duncan Robinson lessens that blow a little bit. I think he adds the movement shooting that Detroit doesn't have anymore for the moment, while Malik Beasley is still up in the air. So I like it. Does it really move the needle? No. Does it make this offseason a little bit less of a loss? Yes, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, just look at last year's team and look at this year's team, especially without Malik Beasley. Let's just assume that he's not on the roster for the start of this upcoming season. Even with the re-addition of Jaden Ivey, I don't know. I don't think this team is that much better. Maybe it's slightly better than last year, but I mean, this is on paper, it looks like a very similar team. Certainly not a team who has taken a massive step forward, like you just broke down. Like, teams like Atlanta who take a step forward, or Orlando taking a step forward. I certainly don't look at these acquisitions and be like, oh my God, the Pistons, they took 3 leaps forward. They're going to contend for the East. I don't see it, man. I still think that they have a ton of room for improvement, ton of a really young roster, a lot of young guys who are going to improve. But like, just looking at the body of work that Trajan Langdon has done in free agency, I don't know, man. I don't see it. I don't see this team getting that much better. I think they're at best about the same as last year.
I came into this episode expecting you to talk me down, and I think I'm gonna need to talk you down a little bit, just because
Knock me down, dude.
I agree. I agree. This is not what we wanted. And we talked about it last week how like there's blood in the water in the Eastern Conference. Other teams are seeing it too. We saw the Celtics, they obviously went down with the injury. The Pacers went down with their injury, and then they lost Miles Turner. They are so next year they're going to be even minuscule what they were this year. So other teams are seeing this blood in the water that we talked about specifically. That why Detroit should strike while the iron's hot. Now they clearly didn't. Other teams did. I think that's going to come back to bite us in the ass. But I mean, okay, so starting lineups with this new additions, and one thing I will mention, Malik Beasley, we traded. I can't actually remember if we traded or signed him last year. That didn't go through. We didn't sign him until July 6th last year. So that's 4 days from now, and we know how important he was to this team last year. We're still talking about him today. Like, so there is still some guys out there that could transform this team and play a big role. So it's important to remember that we do have a few guys out there. This team could still change. But I'm looking at this starting lineup of starting lineup's not changing. Cade Cunningham at the 1, Jaden Ivey at the 2, Asar Thompson at the 3, Tobias at the 4, Jalen Duren at the 5. That's the starting lineup that we never saw once last season. As good as we were, as good a season we were, we never saw that starting lineup once. So that's easily going to be our starting 5. And that in itself should be better than last year. Now you go to our second unit. I personally think Karis LeVert's going to run sort of that backup point guard role. Again, he's more of like an initiator. He's less of a flamethrower shooter, but he can create for himself. He can create for others. So I think it's going to be Karis at the 1. I think you're going to probably go maybe Duncan at the 2, Ron at the 3, maybe do a little bit of a difference there. I guess maybe Ivy staying in there. I don't know what you're going to do at the 2. And then Ron at the 3, Duncan at the 4, and then Stu at the 5. So like there's shooting with that unit, and Stewart, who shot, I think, 36% from 3 just a year removed. Karis can create for himself. He can create for others. Duncan's a flamethrower. And then on top of that, again, I keep going back to it. I'm still holding out that like we can get Malik on a 1-year deal and just wait for this all to blow over, and he's going to come back in, jump in that second unit, and provide more shooting in there. We can't bank on that obviously, but like that's what I'm really hoping for. So I'm with you. This team definitely didn't get better. If anything, we got better just simply because we're going to be healthy. And we talked about that being a plus. It is, but it didn't get better roster-wise, really. And other teams around us, the top dogs got worse. The kind of guys that are on our level all got better roster-wise. So, again, we didn't sign Malik Beasley until July 6th last year. Maybe there's something else in the play there. I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned. The last thing I'll kind of say in this is while we were playing the Knicks in the playoffs last year, size was a big issue with us. We are not a very big team. Physically, Cade Cunningham's a big-bodied guard. I think it's like 6'6" point guard, which is good size for a point guard. But you got Jaden Ivey, who's a little bit undersized. You got Marcus Sasser, the backup point, who's super undersized. Asar is great at 6'7", but if you're running him at the 4, then you're undersized. Really, Jalen Duren is our biggest guy at like 6'11". We're overall undersized compared to the New York Knicks. These signings that we got are going to absolutely help us with that. So you basically are replacing Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley with Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson at 6'7" and 6'8" guys. So it's going to help us just physically with size. But I wish I could talk you off the ledge more. I can't. I can't. I'm not happy with how it went down. I would have gone out, and again, I don't know if that's Trajan Langdon. I don't know if that's people that want to come play here. I don't know what it is. It's going to be a lot of, we're basically telling Fred Vincent to figure out everyone's 3-point shot and make everyone flamethrowers, and we'll hope that gets it done.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. And like I said, it's a super young team. So we'll see if, guys like Ron Holland in their second season can, take a much needed leap forward. Guys like Asar Thompson who have I think have the ability to be, potential superstars or borderline superstars. We'll see if, guys like him can, take that leap in year three. It's not to say that they can. And then obviously Jaden Ivey, coming in year, I think 4 for JI. And yeah, he has a big season ahead of them too. So who knows? Those guys all improve, and we're looking at this roster like, holy shit, they're so much better than last year. So I'm not going to say the sky's falling out now, but I am disappointed. We talked about it. We don't have to talk about it anymore.
So moving right along, moving to the Detroit Red Wings, they too had their NHL draft and then NHL free agency start. For lack of better terms, I think it was a little bit more or less the same, but the Detroit Red Wings drafted Carter Bear 13th overall. You got some stuff on Carter Bear?
Yeah. First thing I will say, and I don't know if this is just in like an indictment of the NHL not being as relevant of a league. I asked ChatGPT break down the Red Wings draft pick of Carter Bear, and it said that it didn't know who Carter Bear was. Like literally, it said like, "Hey, can you give me more information on this potential draft pick for the Red Wings, and then maybe I can give more info here." So I don't know if that's a bad omen. I don't know if maybe it's just like I said, NHL, like minor league teams, systems not being as online or whatever. Carter Bear, he is only 18 years old, so maybe just ChatGPT is not the wiser on him. But yeah, 6 feet, 80-pound forward. Google to the rescue, by the way, on Carter Bear. Scored 40 goals, 42 assists for the Everett Silvertips in the WHL last season. So it's about all I know about this kid. Left-handed winger, like I said. Yeah, forward. I don't know. It's the 13th overall pick. I think you're kind of maybe taking swings at the 13th pick. I think he probably wasn't a top tier prospect, and that makes sense. Fall into 13. So that's where we are there. This is, like I said, 18-year-old kid, so he's probably not going to be in the league for at least 3 seasons, 4 seasons. So we're probably not going to see this kid for a while, and we're probably gonna forget about him until he finally makes his NHL debut. But that's where we are right now. Carter Bear.
Yeah, so Carter, I just did a little bit of research as we were going up to the draft, and then obviously taking Carter Bear. So Carter Bear, a guy that has good size. There's a few guys around that spot that Detroit was selecting that were a little bit undersized. We currently on our professional roster are a little bit undersized in that same position with Alex DeBrincat already up there. So we're kind of an undersized forward team. So we kind of were trying to avoid those undersized guys. Carter Bear, good size at 6 foot, like you said. But the thing about him, and it's just kind of the Detroit way, is that like he has an insane motor. He is no matter who he's going up against, he will not leave anything up to chance. He's extremely fast. He basically every single play he's going all out, which just fits the Detroit Red Wings model. You can break it down into like our types, and it's every single time when we're taking forwards, it's just guys that will leave nothing up to chance. He's going to go and battle every single time he's near the puck. And so that's really great. The issue with him, and I don't even want to really consider an issue, is probably why he fell a little bit to us. I think he probably could have gone maybe top 10. He had a laceration in his Achilles, so he had caught a skate across the Achilles and ended up ending a season essentially. So there definitely probably was a few teams that stayed away just because of the severity of that injury. The Detroit Red Wings obviously didn't really care about it. They talked to multiple doctors. Everything I read said that he supposedly will be able to come back 100%. Sounds like a real gruesome injury, just taking a skate to the Achilles. I don't think it was fully lacerated, but it was a partial laceration of his Achilles. So it's a guy that I think I'm happy with. We ended up taking him. I think we took another goalie towards the 3rd or 4th round. So just maybe something to note if we don't feel comfortable with our 2 guys, Sebastian Costa and our Trey Augustine, who currently plays for the Michigan State Spartans. You can never have too many goalies, but kind of just interesting there. But the other thing that came out of the draft was we had the 2 trades. The one that actually came during the draft was that trading for goalie John Gibson. So at the trade deadline, Kyle and I really broke down what we think we should do. Now, I've already said a million times I'm not a hockey savant, but we definitely wanted Steve Yzerman to do something. We've been waiting in this mediocrity for too long. He really didn't do anything, and just coming up home with Peter Mrazek again, just a reunion there. Who admittedly was coming off a good year last year, wasn't having such a great year this year. But I don't know what his end game was, if it had to do with this at all. But Peter Mrazek was traded for goalie John Gibson and a 2nd round pick and a 4th round pick. So, I mean, if nothing else, it gives us a little bit more stability. It's going to be probably Cam Talbot and John Gibson in net until we feel comfortable with bringing up Sebastian Costa, right?
I think that's exactly right. I think, yeah, the Wings definitely needed a a veteran presence in goalie. They got a lot of really good prospects that aren't, either aren't in the NHL yet, like Trey Augustine, great goalie, but still playing in college another year, or Costa too, just maybe not quite ready yet, young prospects. So yeah, you bring in a proven guy like John Gibson. Now, I will say, John Gibson, basically a very good 29 game sample size from this past season. Sound like someone else that we just talked about Jaden Ivey. I think almost the identical sample size there, but yeah, and then pretty. I would say two. I don't want to say bad seasons the year before, but certainly underwhelming seasons for John Gibson. The 2 seasons before, he is a proven goalie, and I think he has been on some pretty shit teams. So maybe building up, a defense around a guy like John Gibson is really going to do some good. Your goalie can only be so good if he's facing 40 plus shots a game, right? But yeah, he's definitely a proven goalie. He is the seventh highest paid goalie in the NHL. I will say he's definitely not, certainly not a tier one goalie, not a tier two, not known as a tier two goalie in the league, but he's still solid, and he's paid like a solid goalie. There's only the likes of like the Hullebucks of the world who are getting paid more. Only six goalies getting paid more than him. So their Wings are certainly paying quite a bit, but hopefully he can stack up this pretty good season he had last year, have another good one, and really contribute to this Red Wings team, because they need good goaltending.
They need good goaltending. They also need good defensing out front. Like I mean, like you mentioned, Anaheim, terrible defensive team. It's not like he's coming to a perfect situation here in Detroit. We have a below average defense. It's kind of a major hole we need in this free agency, and we had pretty much the worst penalty kill in NHL history. So it's not like he's coming to a great situation.
Yeah.
Now that's just not to say they can't still make moves. I know they had two moves right before we started recording today with their free agency signings. I haven't had a chance to look into who they were, what they do. So hopefully we're making some moves on the defensive side, because if we can step up our goaltending a little bit, maybe that's going to help carry our defense a little bit, and they can just help each other out there. So again, was that Steve Yzerman's plan, end goal when he did acquire Peter Mrazek at the last trade deadline? I doubt it. I don't truly know what his end goal was, but it ended up working out in some regard, in which we have a little bit more faith in who's going to be in that with Cam Talbot there. So the other two things that the Detroit Red Wings are doing as they're going through the drafts and free agency, first and foremost, Showtime is back in Detroit. Patty Kane signed a $3 million 1-year deal that's mostly incentive based, kind of the same rinse and repeat that he's had over the last few years since he came here, 3 years ago. I think this is just a no-brainer. I truly think he likes being here. I think we need to start having some success in order to keep him here throughout the rest of his career. But I think he likes being here. I think he likes Larkin. I think he really likes, DeBrincat. I think he likes Detroit. And he's been Showtime. He as long as he's willing to be here, I'm taking him back in Detroit.
Yeah, and he's playing a lot too. I mean, he has battled a few smaller injuries since coming to the Red Wings, but I mean, most of the time he's out there, he's playing, and he's playing at a really high level despite his age. So yeah, I mean, like you said, as long as he's willing to be here, I'm glad to have him, and I really do think that he wants to win in Detroit. He could hop to another team, another contender. I think he's stuck around in Detroit because he really likes, what the Red Wings are building here. We haven't got it done. I really think that he wants to see this through. He wants to see this team, make the playoffs and maybe make a deeper run into the playoffs once they finally do, for the first time in a fucking decade. So I love it, and I love that it is an incentive-based contract, and mostly incentive for Kane to just play. So, if he's injured, they don't have to pay him a lot. So I think that it's, team friendly in that sense, but I'm really ecstatic that Kaner is staying. And yeah, I think his contract is, even a bit cheaper than last year too, which he broke down. So that's huge. Wings also made a couple moves to free up cap space, which was sweet. They shipped off Tarasenko, shedded his cap, Ville Husso as well. So I think they're saving about 22 million between those two players. So yeah, it's they're definitely making moves. I don't know if they're shedding this cap space because they're going after a bigger signing, or maybe it's too late for that. I'm not sure. Free agency just started, but yeah, they're I mean, Stevie Wise, he's making moves for sure.
He's making moves. I mean, I pray it's towards something bigger. I know a lot of the big names are already gone. We briefly talked about, Mitch Marner. There was really, like a 0.2% chance he was going to end up coming here to Detroit. He ended up not coming. I'm happy he was able to get Tarasenko out without having to attach any draft picks along with it, just to dump that. I'm surprised the Minnesota Wild were willing to take him on without us having to attach anything to it. Don't ask questions, take him. Thank you. Have a nice day. The Tarasenko experiment was an absolute failure. So I'm glad we're just kind of over with that. But again, he's starting to sign some of these guys that, like, in my opinion, are just guys that are this same process. Like the guys that they're not big name signings, and if they work out, they're working out marginally, and it's like, okay, that wasn't a full mistake. Like it helped us a tiny bit, but they're not game changers in like this situation in which we're in. So that's why, like, when we talked about the Pistons, the Red Wings are kind of treating the free agency the same way. The only difference is I think in the Pistons situation, like I said, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I think we're trying to go out and get these guys. I think that they're at the end of the day choosing not to come to Detroit. I think it's a front office for the Red Wings. I don't think we're going after these guys, and I think it's all part of this bigger plan that they have that hasn't worked out. So it was kind of funny though. You mentioned Ville Husso. I think Ville Husso went and signed with the Anaheim Ducks. So that would mean the Anaheim has both Peter Mrazek and Ville Husso. So they saw Detroit's goaltending and said, like, we want that. That's what we want. And we can tell you right now, it's not gonna be pretty for you guys. So I thought that was funny that they saw that and they're like, let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah, definitely not what you want, buddy. Yeah, I think last thing for me for the Red Wings, we talked about them, freeing up some cap space. They do have about $17 million in cap that they can work with. So again, yeah, are they poised to go out and make one more big splash, one more big signing, impact player, maybe a forward, or fingers crossed a fucking defenseman, because yeah, they were just horrible on defense all of last year. So maybe Gibson gets another defender, maybe a line 2 defender, and yeah, but whatever they do, or maybe they're just possibly accommodating some in-season trades as well, keeping up that flexibility, whatever it is. I think Stevie Y, he has certainly, if nothing else, given himself some flexibility. But yeah, I mean, similar to the Pistons, you look at this roster and the moves that they made so far in the offseason, and have they gotten any better? I don't really think so. I think they're about the same.
Yeah, I agree completely. Both teams, we talked about it for weeks, that like the most difficult part of a GM's job is to know when to make that move and try and get to that next level, and then obviously how you make that move. Both teams felt like they were on the precipice of making that move, and it was about time for them to do so, and both of them were kind of caught with their thumb up their asses, and now we're saying like, well, we're gonna see. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. There, like we said, there's still for both teams, there's still a ton of time. Malik didn't sign with Detroit until the 6th of July, so we have 5 more days until we can start really panicking. Like you said, with the Wings, they still have a lot of money and stuff that could be shelled out for a bigger move there, or like you said, at the deadline or something. So a lot to we got to be patient. We just got to be patient, and that's really hard. We talked about it. We're not patient people. We're emotional, dumb fans who have immediate reactions to everything. And I tell you what, if we recorded this podcast this exact time yesterday, there would have been a lot more yelling coming from my end. So I was able to calm down and think about this. So yeah, we'll see where they kind of go over the next few days. Hopefully we can come on next week and report that both teams ended up making a move that we feel comfortable going into next season for. So we'll wait and see. But let's finish up with some Detroit Tiger stuff, and then we'll get into our grid of the week. For the Detroit Tigers, they have some good and some bad. So they are currently sitting at 53 and 32, now at 11 and a half games up on the Guardians, and tied with the Dodgers for the best record in baseball. The Dodgers and the Tigers kind of going back and forth with that overall best record in baseball. The news that I wanted to bring up, I think you have some other stuff as well, but Kerry Carpenter going back on the IL. So it's a little bit of a nagging hamstring injury. He's dealt with it really all season. We talked about it a few different times. He came out of the gate hot, swinging, hitting a home run after home run, really had a big slump, most likely tied to that hamstring injury that he's been dealing with. Kind of worked through it a little bit, and then on the game on Sunday, hit a home run. I believe he hit a home run, and then his next at-bat hit a triple, legged it out. Everyone kind of immediately together were saying, like, maybe Kerry's back. Like, I think he's healthy. We should be good to go. And then he gets pulled after he got a stand-up triple and was put on the IL with that hamstring injury. So I'm at the point, like, we're about to be to the All-Star break, and I don't have the All-Star numbers in front of us. Detroit Tigers are sending a number of people to the All-Star games. I'm shutting Kerry down for at least a month, if not more, because this time does not matter. We're going to have at least a week or two off from the All-Star break. Give him an extra 2 or 3 weeks around that, because this time does not matter. We have that 11 and a half game lead over the Guardians for a reason. Let's get healthy and start doing what winning teams in October do, and not care about the playoff, or not care about the regular season. We need to start preparing and getting healthy for October.
The only thing that I would say is, these games do matter in a sense that the Tigers are still, gunning for a first round bye in the playoffs, and especially in the MLB playoffs where, baseball is such a crapshoot and any team can beat any other team. I think that having that first round bye is absolutely crucial. It's just, one less series, and especially that wild card series being a best of three. It's one less series for you to get bounced, right? So I do think that they are still playing for that. But yeah, as far as the AL Central is concerned, yeah, I think they have about a 99% chance, knock on wood, buddy, to win the Central. So yeah, 11.5 games up. So yeah, I'm totally with you though. I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit, but yeah, for Kerry Carpenter, shut him down for a month. Give him 2 weeks off before the All-Star break, and then of course that breaks another 5 days and maybe a week after, whatever he needs. Because yeah, I mean, hamstring injuries. If anyone's ever pulled a hammy, it's awful, and it lingers and it nags at you. And I think there's just not a lot that you can do besides just let your body rest. Because if you're playing, you can play through it, and it's going to continue to nag at you. So, yeah, and it looked like he did pull it on that triple, that stand up triple. So, yeah, I don't think it's any cause for like huge concern. But yeah, shut him down, let him get healthy, kid. But yeah, overall, yeah, the Tigers, you broke it down there. They're cruising though, 53-32 record. And yeah, we're approaching the All-Star game. I think the starters are announced today at well, I guess tomorrow as we're recording today as you're listening. So hopefully you'll be listening to this and hearing quite a few Tigers announced as All-Star starters, at least maybe two or three counting Scooble, and then full rosters announced on July 6th. So at the very least, we're going to get quite a few Detroit Tigers in this All-Star game for the first time in a while. We touched on it, but it seems like for the past 5, 6, 10 years almost, we've been kind of sending the minimum one player to the All-Star game, and it was just the token Tiger, even though he's batting about 250 and couldn't sniff the All-Star game otherwise. So that's not the case now. These guys are awesome. These guys are some of the best hitters and some of the best players in the MLB, certainly in the American League. So I'm really excited to see them play in the mid-season classic, and yeah, seeing the boys ball out.
Yeah, without seeing the numbers in front of me, it seems like it'll probably be Glaber, Riley Green, and at least Torkelson, or excuse me, not Torkelson, Skubal, that are going to be starting for the All Star team there, and we'll see what other numbers, what other guys are being included in there. Chance Spencer Torkelson maybe sneaks in as a reserve. I think maybe there would be a chance Kerry Carpenter could have snuck in there, but obviously he's going to be shut down. So yeah, over the next few days we'll bring that up, and we'll have a lot more to talk about with the Tigers as we get into the month of July. Obviously, the trade deadline is right around the end of July. So in the next, 2, 3 episodes, we'll be breaking down exactly what we need as a team, maybe what's out there, what we'd be willing to give up. So we'll be breaking that down over the next a few weeks or so in the next few shows. Let's wrap up the show with some grid of the week. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, and I'm going with the guy. I don't think you could predict this. Going a little outside the box. My grid of the week, Devin Booker. That's right. Devin
Oh,
Booker threw out the first pitch for the Tigers games. I think it on Saturday or Sunday. It might have been
Sunday.
Sunday when he was throwing out the first pitch when Skubal was pitching. Almost gave the grid of the week to Skubal. Just a great outing for him. 7 innings pitched, I think 13 Ks. But I'm going to give it to Devin Booker, who threw out the first pitch. I can only imagine he threw a strike, just an absolute heater, probably 104 out of Devin Booker. And then yeah, after the game or maybe before, gifted some really sweet custom baseball cleats, Devin Booker baseball cleats, to Scooble, a couple other guys. I think Labor Torres got a pair. But yeah, Devin Booker throwing out the first pitch, and who knows, maybe he was inking that new deal with the Pistons. We can only assume he was, because what else was he doing there? Maybe he only booked a one way from Phoenix to Detroit, and he's just staying home. So regardless, grid of the week, D Book.
I've never seen a guy love Detroit so much and have the fans like so constantly talk about D Book to Detroit or someone them to Detroit, but then have it probably never come true just because the Suns are about to give him that insane contract extension. So like it'll probably never get done. But like he loves Detroit so much, it's such a shame that we can't figure out how to get. And it's obviously on him too. Although if
Hey, we
anyone
could have
puts
figured it out. We could have fucking drafted the guy.
Yeah, or he could have decided to play for Tom and the Spartans, and we could have done all that, and it's on him a little bit because he continues to sign his extensions with the Suns. But like, if someone's putting that much money in front of you, like the Suns are doing for Devin Booker, you're taking that contract extension. So yeah, shout out to him. I was at that game on Sunday. I got to see him from way, 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 way up high. But I know he stayed and got everyone's signature on a glove. Everyone from the starters to the bullpen catchers on a glove. So yeah, the man loves Detroit. Someday I just hope that the Detroit Devin Booker love story ends with happiness. So that's a great grid of the week. I think his first one. Maybe he might have gotten one before, maybe, but I'll say probably his first one.
Probably his first.
So my grit of the week, you almost thought like you almost had me fooled that I think you were gonna go with my guy, because my guy's a little bit off the beaten path a little bit here. I'm gonna go Tom Gores as my grit of the week, and not because of the Pistons stuff that he's doing right now. We talked about it already for so long about like what's going on with the Pistons. I think they need to do more. Not that he's super involved with that, but Tom Gores is gonna be my grit of the week because he is leading a group that has successfully secured a WNBA expansion back to Detroit starting in 2029. So the WNBA Detroit Shock. We think it'll be the Shock. We're not entirely sure. Is going to be coming back to Detroit.
It has to be the Shock.
Well, so the Shock technically was relocated to Tulsa in 2010. They were sold down there. So I don't know, and shame on me, I don't know all the WNBA teams. I don't even know if there's still a team in Tulsa. Like, did the Shock get traded to Tulsa and then dissipate? Like, I don't know if they're still a thing or not. I really hope it is the Shock, just because it's still the Pistons and the Shock. That makes so much sense. But it'll be actually a lot of fun to have the Shock back in Detroit. They're going to share LCA with the Red Wings and the Pistons. You already had some drama online about Sophie Cunningham, who has quickly become a fan favorite for her, over the last 6 weeks or so, just based on her play, and her Caitlin Clark stuff came out, and she plays for Indiana. She came out and
based
basically
on her play, Tyler? Is she popular because of her play?
I like her because the way she plays basketball and the way she stood up for Caitlin Clark. But I no longer like her, and I think a lot of people actually don't like her anymore because she plays for the WNBA Indiana team. And then she's bad-mouthing Detroit, saying like we should have had an expansion to Miami, and no one wants to go to Detroit. Like, you live and play in Indiana, so let's not glass house before we throw our stones. And B, the WNBA all-time record for games has been set twice. It's been the same number twice. Both of them were set by Detroit. I think in like 2003 and 2007 or 2009 or something. Detroit has twice broken the record for WNBA attendance. So Sophie Cunningham, you are off my grid of the week list. Tom Gores, thank you, and everyone else is part of this group that is leading a WNBA team back to Detroit. I'm so happy I can't wait to get down there and actually watch a game and show that Detroit doesn't just love the Pistons. We love the Shock too.
Hell yeah. No, yeah. And I actually just saw a clip on Instagram, and it was when the Shock won one of their many titles that they won in the early 2000s that you just alluded to. And yeah, the Palace was bumping at the time. I couldn't not that I couldn't believe it, because I mean, of course they can pack up fans too. I mean, the WNBA is growing so much, but even back in '03, whenever, I think it was '03 or '05, whenever it was, when the Shock won that championship in that clip, it was packed. It was loud. I mean, I thought it was, looking at that clip, you'd be, remiss not to think that it was an NBA game. So yeah, I think that certainly at LCA, they can get back to that. And especially with the NBA growing so much and so popular with players like, Caitlin Clark, really, really growing that game. Angel Reese as well, trying to grow the game. So yeah, it's big. I love it. I love that, Tom Gore's putting his money into it. Obviously, we know, the financials of the WNBA aren't fantastic. A lot of it's funded by the NBA. And I think it's great. I think it's great to grow the game. You gotta spend money to make money. So yeah, good on Tom Gores. And yeah, congrats on the grid of the week. Congrats on hopefully the Detroit Shock 2029 coming back to D-Town.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, just the Pistons support is going to be great for them. You have Jaden Ivey, his mom, who played for the Shock back in the day. And then Tom Gores obviously owning both. So I'm really excited for it, and I'm just glad that we're able to. I pray that it stays the Shock. If it doesn't stay the Shock, I think I might throw a fit. I'm not entirely sure. I just love that name, and it fits so well. So yeah, grid of the week to Devin Booker and Tom Gores and everyone involved in getting the Shock back to Detroit. That is our show. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. You can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle_Marino. You can find me on Twitter at Dutton_Tyler and at both Piston Powered and Champaign Athletics. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, and you can watch us on YouTube and TikTok at Gridiron Report as well. Finally, you can join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That phone number is 313-306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars. Leave a little review saying so. Go and follow us on all forms of social. Follow us on YouTube. Give that video a subscribe and a like as well. Allows us to track and give you guys more Detroit sports stuff that you love. So thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, and downloads too, y'all. Yeah, download and then undownload and re-download again. It helps us more than you know. So thanks, y'all. Restore the roar.
Yeah. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retired, Grit Iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow. Make your fandom a vow.